Today we are learning about Chapter 2, Lesson 8, which can be found on pages 125 through 130. Our objective is I can estimate products by rounding and using compatible numbers. Vocabulary, compatible numbers. Question 1, why would you want to estimate a number? Question 2, estimate by rounding with this problem. Okay, let's watch this video to get some ideas about rounding and multiplication.
In this lesson, you are going to learn how to assess the reasonableness of products of two multi-digit factors using rounding, which uses place value to determine if you go up or down in your rounding. You know that when you complete a problem that you have to check the answer. One way to check an answer is to do it over again. Another way is to see if the answer is reasonable or makes mathematical sense. Today we will check the reasonableness of multiplication problem answers using rounding. Let's look at a problem to try out this idea. Tanya multiplied 39 by 52 and got 2028. Is this reasonable? Why or why not? Well, Tanya multiplied 39 times 52, so we'll write this down. To see if Tanya's answer is reasonable, we will round each factor to the leftmost digit, in this case to the tens place, and then multiply. 39 is between 30 and 40, and the 9 in the ones place tells us that this is closest to 40. 52 is between 50 and 60, and the 2 in the ones place tells us that it's closest to 50. So we multiply 40 and 50, and we get 2,000. So is Tanya's answer reasonable? Yeah. Tanya gave a product of 2028 when our estimate was 2,000. These are very close, so Tanya's answer is reasonable, or it makes sense. Let's look at another problem to better see how this works. Caitlin multiplied 4,125 and 31 and got 16,500. Is this reasonable? Why or why not? Well, Caitlin multiplied 4,125 and 31, so we'll write this down. To see if Caitlin's answer is reasonable, we will round each factor to the leftmost digit and then multiply. But wait a minute. The leftmost digit in these two factors are in different places. When we added and subtracted, we learned that we couldn't do that because our answer wouldn't have been close enough to the real answer. So in those cases, we rounded to the leftmost place of the smallest number. Shouldn't we do that here? Well, in multiplication, if we round to the leftmost place of the smallest number, something different happens than in addition and subtraction. If we do this, we will get two numbers that are not easy to work with. In this problem, if we round it to the tens place, the 31 and the 4,125 would become 4,130 and 30. These are not any easier to work with than 4,125 and 31. Since the purpose of rounding is to make it easy to see if a product is reasonable in this case, we will not round to the leftmost place of the smallest number like we did with addition and subtraction. Instead, we will round both factors to the leftmost place regardless of how many digits each factor has. So let's see if Caitlin's answer is reasonable using this strategy. 4,125 is between 4,000 and 5,000. Notice that I rounded to the leftmost place. The one in the thousands, in the hundreds place tells us that 4,125 is closer to 4,000. 31 is between 30 and 40. Notice that I rounded to the leftmost place again, even though it's different than the leftmost place of the other one. The one in the tens place tells us that this is closer to 30. So I'm going to multiply 4,030. 4 times 3 is 12. I have 4 zeros in my problem, so I get 120,000. Was Caitlin's answer reasonable? No. Caitlin got a product of 16,500 when our estimate was 120,000. These don't even have the same number of digits, so no, this is not reasonable at all. Something must have happened when Caitlin was multiplying or when she was adding after she got her partial products in her multiplication problem. In any case, these are not reasonable. In this lesson, you learned how to assess the reasonableness of products of two multi-digit factors using rounding, which uses place value to determine if you go up or down with your rounding.
All right, so let's look at this in your book. On page 125, there is talks about compatible numbers, and it gives you two ways that you can round. So with this problem in the example, it wants you to multiply 12 times 92. So to estimate the product, since those aren't easy numbers to round by, so just to get us a rough estimate, the first way you can do it is just to round one of the factors. So in this case, they were just going to round 12 to 10. So then they're doing 92 times 10. Because we could do that in our head. We learned in the Power of 10 lesson that 92 times 10, all we have to do is just put a 0 on that 92. So it becomes 920. So in our first way, our estimate is $920. So let's look at the other way. This time it would be rounding both factors. So 92, if we rounded that, let's see, the 2 tells us that it should be rounded down. So it should be 90. And the 12, that 2 tells us it should be rounded down to the nearest 10. So it'd be 90 times 10. So we can do 90 times 10 in our head because, again, that power of 10 that we learned about, 9 times 1 is 9, and then we just put those 2 zeros on the end. So it'd be 900. So we got to round the same estimates with both ways. They were both right around 900. Your homework helper also gives you a good example that works through both ways. So in this case, it's 21 times 154. So again, it's not easy just to do in our head, but if we round it, we can do it in our head, really. So 154, that if we're rounding to the nearest tens place, we would round it to 150 because that 4 tells us to go down. And 21, that 1 tells us to go down to the nearest tens place, so it would be 20. So 150 times 20 would be 3,000. So that was the way where we just rounded each factor to the nearest 10. Another way would be to use compatible numbers. So the compatible numbers they're going to pick are some that you can easily multiply in your head. Because even though 150 times 20 wasn't bad, that might be a little hard to do in your head. But if we use compatible numbers and make 154, if we round that up to 200, because it's pretty close to 200, so if we're rounding to the nearest 100, it would be to 200 because that 5 tells us to go up. And 21, if we round that down to 20, then it would be 200 times 20. So really we could just do 2 times 2, which we know is 4, and put those 3 zeros on the end. So we know it's 4,000. So again, it gives us right around the same estimate. All right, so let's look back at these questions. Question 1 you might have to think about a little bit. If you look back at that video though, I think it kind of explains why we'd want to estimate the numbers or use compatible numbers. And this one I want you to work out by rounding.